A reading from the Holy Gospel as written to us by Luke. Jesus was praying in a certain place, and when he had finished, one of his disciples said to him, "Lord, teach us to pray, just as John taught his disciples." And he said to them, "When you pray, say this: Father, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, and give us each day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we forgive those who are indebted to us. And do not subject us to any final trial." And then he went on to say, "Suppose one of you has a friend to whom he goes at midnight and says, 'Friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread, for a friend of mine has arrived at my house from a journey, and I have nothing to offer him.' And he says in reply from within, 'Don't bother me. The door's locked. My children and I are already in bed. I cannot get up to give you anything.' I tell you, if he does not get up to give the visitor the loaves because of friendship, he will get up to give him whatever he needs because of his persistence. And I tell you, ask and you will receive. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. Everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. And to the one who knocks, the door will be opened. Now what father among you would hand his son a snake if he asked for a fish? Or hand him a scorpion if he asked for an egg? If you, wicked as you are, know how to give good gifts to your own children, how much more will the Father in heaven give the Holy Spirit to those who ask him?" This is good news from the Lord. So the first and third readings clearly tell me that I should say something about prayer. In the first reading from Genesis, we have a charming little story, really, of Abraham bargaining God down. And it's sort of nice to hear, but it leaves some bad impressions. And that is that God can be manipulated by anything. And secondly, that God is punitive, that he's going to punish people in the city who aren't good. By the time we get to Jesus, that notion has evolved, and we have God loving the good and the bad, which we still don't understand, and if we'd be honest, we still don't really agree with. Those are the things you only learn to agree with when you live inside of a world called prayer. And I mean that, as I said, a world called prayer. And that's what he's talking about when he talks about persisting. It's not just a momentary, God, I want this. God, do this for me or that. It's a sustained relationship. And what we see in this beautiful passage from Genesis is that whatever else you might say about it, Abraham has a trustful, loving relationship with God. That he knows that he can talk back to God. So I want to describe prayer for you. And listen closely, because it's probably not the way you think of it, as primal speech, naked speech, how you would talk when you know you can say anything without being judged. Have you ever been in such a relationship? Most people haven't. That's what God is. When you can feel completely safe, when you can speak without any need to impress other people, your naked inner truth without any hesitation or any doubt. That's prayer. And when you can talk and communicate that way, you're in this state called prayer. I'm not trying to be clever, but I'm going to try to describe this primal speech, this foundational communication, pretty much in contradistinction to the way we talk at a political convention. All right? So I don't need to where you can't speak the truth, where you'll be judged on everything, where you do not feel safe, and you're completely preoccupied with what other people will think. So think of prayer as the exact opposite of any political convention. I'm not taking sides. You know and I know you can speak very little truth in that setting. You have to say things that will sell, will get you sold, to put it a little more honestly. So can you imagine living in a different kind of space, in a different kind of place? Have you ever spoken to God that way? Or I'm going to go for broke. I'm going to tell God exactly who I am, and exactly what I feel, and exactly what I think, with the trust that it would be heard, and would be received, and would be respected. That's what he means. I'm telling you, if you ask in such a way, you will receive. If you knock in such a way, the door will be opened, because you have opened the door. Do you see, it isn't, and Jesus says this in Matthew's Gospel, God doesn't need your prayers. God really doesn't. It's you, now think about this, it's you who need to say them so your own ears, as it were, can hear what you're really thinking and what you're really afraid of and who you really are. And you need to do it again and again. Find one place to speak with absolute freedom, absolute honesty, with absolute trust that it will be heard. Now that's why this gospel ends with really, maybe to some people, a disappointing response, but actually a quite wonderful one. He says, if you then, who are wicked, if you, petty and small as you are, you know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more? Jesus often uses this expression. If you, then how much more God? So think of the most loving person you've ever met. I hope you've met at least one in your whole life. If you haven't met one person who really knows how to love, you don't know how to love. Because that's the only way you learn it. It rubs off. And if you've met one person who knows how to love, I want you to multiply that ad infinitum, which is unimaginable to the human mind. We cannot imagine anything infinite. You can't. Your mind closes down. Human beings can only count. We count everything. We measure everything. This much, I gave this much, I deserve this much. When you talk to God, you're talking to an infinite source of infinite receptivity. So you've got to change your whole psyche. You've got to change your whole mind to know how to pray. It really is a different form of existence. And once you get there, you can stay there. It really doesn't have anything to do with being in church. I hope you know that. You can do it on the toilet. I hope that isn't irreverent, but you can do it anywhere. Once you learn how to do it, the flow flows through you naturally. And you're in this constant communication of primal speech in a safe place where you know you are being heard, you are being received. And how does he describe this being received? The answer to all these prayers is the same. He doesn't say he's going to give you what you asked for. He says, whatever you ask for, I will give you the Holy Spirit. Oh, darn, it's almost disappointing. I didn't want the Holy Spirit. I wanted to win the lottery. No. He says, no, whatever you ask for, can you imagine that I would not answer it by giving you the Holy Spirit? So you got to keep your conduit open to want that Holy Spirit. And then, of course, you'll know what's worth praying for. And most of the things that they pray for, if they pray at all, at political conventions, isn't about such things as the Holy Spirit. They pray for success. They pray for winning. They pray for money. They pray for power, if they pray at all. But you have been given a different mind, a different heart. You live at an entirely different level of being. And I promise you, quoting the words of Jesus, how much more will the Father give you the Holy Spirit if only you ask Him?